What's up, everybody? Welcome to some Hapatra. I hope you're ready to get your snake on. Yeah, man, I built this deck this week. She's been a lot of fun, but I'll kind of jump into her deck in just a second. Let's go and cover what she does. So, we are playing Hapatra. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you may put a -1 counter on target creature. Then, whenever you put one or more -1 counters on a creature, create a 1/1 green death touch. Create a 1/1 green snake creature token with death touch. Now, I say a creature or target creature because it doesn't matter if we put the -1 counter on our creatures or our opponent's creatures. All that Hapatra cares about is that we're putting a -1 counter on a creature. So, as long as a -1 counter goes on a creature, we're going to get a snake token. So, we have a few creatures in the deck that whenever they enter the battlefield, they're going to enter the battlefield with like a few -1 counters on there. That's going to trigger Hapatra to start making those snake tokens. So that's what kind of makes her unique as a commander, is that we don't necessarily have to put -1 counters on our... It helps if we put -1 counters on our opponent's creatures, but it doesn't matter where they're going. As long as they're going on a creature, Hapatra is going to say, hey, you get a snake. Good job, buddy. She'll give you a little pat on the back. Okay, so that's Hapatra. The next thing we're going to cover is the -1 creatures that we do have in the deck. We're running Channeler in here. She's new from a Monkette. Whenever she enters the battlefield, put 3 -1 counters on target creature you control, which most of the time you're going to choose her because she is a 3/4 body, and then she has a tap ability that says remove a -1 counter from her, add 1 mana to your mana pool. So she's pretty much just a 2 mana dork, and then you're getting those -1 counters on her. You're going to get that snake token as soon as she comes in, and then the next turn you can start taking off the counters to start adding that for mana. We're also running Devoted Druid. It has green mana. Put a -1 counter on Devoted Druid, untap it, and then we can do it again for more green mana. This is really good in the deck. There's numerous ways you can go infinite with Devoted Druid in a Hapatra deck. I don't think I set anything up to go infinite. I'm usually not an infinite combo style person. But if that's your play style, if that's your meta game that you're playing with Commander, go for it. Devoted Druid can go infinite a few different ways. But in the deck, it's really good in the deck in that you can add that green mana, put a -1 counter, get a snake, untap it, add another green mana, put another -1 counter on there. So you basically can get 2 mana, 2 snakes, and then it goes to the graveyard. But at least you got that nice little added bonus out of it. So really pulls its weight in the deck. We're also running Corrosive Minter. Black creatures you control have Wither. If you're not familiar with Wither, whenever they deal damage to a player, they're going to put -1 counters on target creatures. So it's a way for us to get a little bit of extra value out of us, maybe swinging into a cluttered board state. We can get a few more snakes coming in. We're also running Dusk Urchins. Whenever it attacks or blocks, put a -1 counter on it. Then, whenever it dies, draw a card for each -1 counter on it. So you can get into a spot to, let's say we have the Dusk Urchins out, and then we also have the Channeler coming out. So we can actually put, if we don't need her for mana, we can put all those -1 counters on the Dusk Urchins, and then we get those 3 -1 counters on there. We're going to draw 3 cards for that. So there's just a few different ways that you can really take advantage of the -1 counters on there. Sorry, my cat was down there. I didn't want to kick it. We're also running Necroskitter. Awesome card, man. It has Wither, and then whenever a creature an opponent controls, basically, if we have a -1 counter on opponent or our creature's opponents, whenever it dies, return that card to the battlefield under our control. Really cool. Let me get it squared. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, as far as Necroskitter goes, this is one of those cards where you can get it down and you just start pumping out a bunch of -1 counters on your opponent's creatures, whether it's from Contagion class or they're just getting that proliferate kind of going at the end of their turn. You're going to end up just grabbing a bunch of their creatures out of their graveyard, and it just feels so good. I think there's one point where, I can't remember who I was playing against. It was one of the decks that I was practicing, and, hey, get out of here, man. And I was practicing, and we had a Necroskitter out there, man. I was just like grabbing blood. I was just grabbing all my opponent's creatures because we had, actually it was Harbinger of Night. At the beginning of upkeep, put a -1 counter on each creature. So basically we had enough to where I was wiping my opponent's entire board out, and every time they died, Necroskitter would bring it back. So Necroskitter is definitely one of those, you know, if you've got the mana base in your opening hand with Necroskitter, go and keep on it because it's a really fun card to play in Hapatra. We're also running Quill Spike, pretty 3 mana, green or black, remove a -1 counter from a creature you control. It gets +3/+3 until end of turn. So just a nice little value creature. We do have some creatures that come in with a -1 counter as a drawback. So this is a good way for us to, you know, it's a activated ability. We don't have to tap Quill Spike. So we just have to have green or black mana each time we want to activate it. We can start removing those -1 counters on there something to get that nice little bonus and give the other creatures a nice little bonus. We're also running Harbinger of Night. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1 counter on each creature. Now that's going to be our creatures, that's going to be our snake tokens, that's going to be our opponent's creatures. So that's going to kind of put us in this spot to where we're going to lose a lot of our snakes because they are 1/1 snake tokens. But let's say that your opponent has a bunch of creatures out there. Hapatra triggers for each -1 counter that's put on a creature. So if there's 5 creatures from our opponent, 5 creatures on our side, that's going to be 10 snake tokens that's going to trigger off the harbinger of night, putting those -1 counters on there. Now it's going to happen every single turn, but at least you're going to get those snake tokens. If you have a blood artist out there, you can kind of cash in on some of that stuff out there. We're also running Skin Render, a nice little removal creature. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a 3 -1 counters on target creature. So we get it down as a 3/3 body. We're going to get 3 snake. We're at least going to get 1 snake off of it, and then we can take care of one of our opponent's creatures. We're also running Soul Snuffers. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a -1 counter on each creature. So this is going to be just like the Harbinger card. What's going to happen is it's going to come in. It's just going to be a static effect. One time comes in, put a -1 counter on each creature. I had a Soul Snuffers game where yeah, I mean, Soul Snuffers just put in some work. It's really good. It's a little bit better than the Night card because it's going to come in as that one-time effect, and you're going to get all those snakes. Once again, if your opponent's got 10 creatures, we've got 5 creatures, that's going to be 15 snake creatures that we're going to get once it comes into the battlefield, putting those -1 creatures on there. We're also running Crocodile of the Crossing, brand new. It's always fun to find a reason to run a Crocodile. It has haste whenever it enters the battlefield. Put a -1 counter on target creature you control. Now it's a 5/4 body, so if you put a -1 on there, we're looking at 4/3 with haste. So by itself it's pretty good. Or there's plenty of times where you'll have some of these creatures enter the battlefield with just like one -1 creature, one -1 counter. So you're probably just going to throw that over on Hapatra, kind of depending on what you want to go for. But if you want a 5/4 haste body, but pretty good card. We're also running the Elder. So whenever it enters the battlefield with a -1 counter on it, green mana, remove a -1 counter from it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So pretty good. If we can get we have, like I said, we have a few other, like the Crocodile enters the battlefield, put a -1 counter on target creature you control. So we can actually put it on the Elder, kind of just keep that artifact and enchant removal up and running with those -1 counters. We're also running Decimator Beetle. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a -1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever it attacks, remove a -1 counter from target creature you control and put a -1 counter on up to 1 target creature defending player controls. So this card's really, I didn't get to play with it. I would have loved to, but I never drew into it. But so it's really good. It comes to the battlefield, we get the -1 counter on one of our creatures. We get that snake token. Whenever it attacks, remove a -1 counter and then put it on a -1 defending player controls. So that's going to be right when it attacks. So this is before they declare a blocker. So we're going to end up with basically enter the battlefield, 1 snake token. When it attacks, we're going to get another snake token, and we're also going to make it to where one of their creatures is weaker. So, excuse me, really good card in that we get 2 snake tokens for whenever, and then we keep getting the snake tokens as we attack with it. We're also running the Carnifex Demon. It has flying whenever it enters the battlefield with 2 -1 counters on it. Black mana, remove a -1 counter from the demon. Put a -1 counter on each other creature. So this is just like the other effects where we're putting all those counters on the creatures, except we have it. We can activate it anytime we want. So let's say we want to build up a nice little token board state, and then we have to use it or something like that. It's just nice having the ability to just use it at a black mana's notice. We're also running Midnight Banshee. It has Wither, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1 counter on each non-black creature you control. So this is one of those where it's just going to keep doing that. We're going to hopefully keep getting those snake tokens. Now, outside of the -1 creatures, we're running the -1 removal. Running Glistening Oil. We can use Glistening Oil in a pinch to kind of put some infect damage through, but mainly we're just using it for removal. So you enchant a creature, it has infect. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1 counter on it, and then whenever it's put in the graveyard, return it back to our hand. So basically, we can use it as a way to slowly wither away at our opponent's creatures. And at the beginning of each upkeep, we're going to get that -1 counter on there and get a snake token for it. So if it's a 3/3, we're going to end up with 3 snake tokens, and then the Glistening Oil is going to come back to our hand when it hits the graveyard. We're also running Contagion class, if it'll show up. Let's see. There we go. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a -1 counter on target creature. And then, late game, it has the 4 mana proliferate. So we can get into spots where we can really get those snake tokens up and running once we kind of increase the number of -1 counters on our opponent's creatures. We're also running Crumbling Ash. Really good. I never got to get it down, but a really good card. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy target creature with a -1 counter on it. Now, this is not a May ability, so you don't want to just windmill slam it down because we have a lot of creatures that have -1 counters on it on our side of the board. But it's really nice to have. So basically, if we put a couple -1 counters on our opponent's creatures, at the beginning of our upkeep, we can just basically just blow it up. Now, if they don't have any creatures with -1 counters on it, we'll have to start blowing up our own creatures. But hopefully you can kind of play around it like that. We're running Bowfly Infestation. Whenever a creature dies, if it had a -1 counter, put a -1 counter on target creature. So this is one of those that, let's say that we have Crumbling Ashes out there, we kill one of their creatures, we can put a -1 counter on another creature and just kind of keep the chain going, and then it's a really good value card. Running Grim Affliction, you can actually use this as a combat trick, which I actually did. Put a minus one, it's instant speed, put a -1 counter on target creature, then proliferate. I was swinging in with like a 1/3 body or something, and I think it was an opponent's Atrax. So it was a practice match I was playing. So I swung in, dealt that 1 damage. I already had Atrax already had a -1 counter on there. Then I cast the Grim Affliction, put the -1 counter on, then proliferated and took care of it. So you can definitely use it as a nice little combat trick, or as a way to kind of pump up a few more snake tokens. We're also running Splendid Agony, distribute 2 -1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. So once again, if we just need to get a few snake ins, we can put it on our side, opponent's side. Just really good value spell. We're running Incremental Blight, 5 mana, sorcery speed. Put a -1 counter on target creature, then put 2 -1s, then put 3 on a third target. So you have to target 3 different creatures, or you can target the same creature if you want to. But you're putting all those counters on there. Another way to take care of a problem creature or just get into a few more snake tokens. And we're also running Contagion Engine. So whenever it enters the battlefield, put a -1 counter on each creature target player controls, which is going to be really nice because we don't have to put the -1 counters on our side of the board. And then for 4 mana, proliferate and then proliferate again. So you're going to be able to increase those #1 counters and increase those snake tokens. So outside of the -1 creatures, -1 removal, we've got the token package. We're running Nest of Scarabs. Whenever you put 1 or more -1 counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. So this is a way for us to get a nice little added value out of having Hapatra onto the battlefield and then putting -1 counters on a creature. Doesn't matter if it's our opponent creatures or our creatures. So let's say we go over there, we go for the where is it? Excuse me. It's the Splendid Agony. We go for Splendid Agony. Distribute 2 -1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. So we go for that. We're going to get the 2 snake tokens. Then we have Nest of Scarabs out there. We're going to get 2 black insect creature tokens. So really good. It's just basically in here to give us that extra value out of those snake tokens. We're also running Flourishing Defenses. Whenever a -1 counter is put on a creature, ours are opponent creatures, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior. Same thing as the Nest of Scarabs, except we're going to getting the 1/1 green elves out of that. We're also running Parallel Lives. It's a way for us to basically just turn -1 counters into 2 extra snakes, which is always good. And just kind of keeping on theme with it, since we're always going to have basically a green creature on the battlefield with those snake tokens out there, we're running Natural Order, and that's pretty much always going to be for us grabbing Crater Hoof. And I may or may not have won a few times with Crater Hoof in my Hapatra videos, so it was just funny how often I had it in my hand. So it's really, if you have it, it's a really good card to throw into the deck. It just gives you a lot of value with that Crater Hoof line. And we're also running Second Harvest. So for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. So let's say we've got a bunch of snakes running, we have the Nest of Scarabs going, and then we have the Parallel Lives. It's a good way for us to amplify those tokens out. Alright, so that's kind of the token package. Now we're running for the pump package. We're running Beastmaster Ascension. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster. As long as Beastmaster has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +5/+5. Really good card. I had absolutely zero problem turning on Beastmaster Ascension with this deck because we get so many snake tokens up and running. So this is pretty much you know, depending on the deck that you're running, it's almost an auto-include because it's pretty easy to turn it online with those quest counters. We're also running Coat of Arms. This is just 5 mana, just turn your snakes into big snake dudes. I mean, it's awesome. With Coat of Arms, each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 creature type with it. So basically, you know, we got 5 snakes, they all get +5/+5 or +4, whatever it is. But basically, it's going to turn just get it down, and they all have a nice little bonus. And then you can get to the spots where you can really increase, every time you get a new snake out there, it's going to really increase their power and toughness. So pretty fun card to play with. We're also running Eldrazi Monuments. Since the snake tokens come so cheap, creatures you control get +1/+1 and have flying and indestructible. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. If you can, sacrifice the monument. So we're pretty much always going to have a snake out there. So giving all of our creatures +1, flying and indestructible is a really good way for us to kind of push that final combat damage through. When you have a whole like board of flying snakes, feels pretty good. And then we're also running the Anointed. Ah, yes, Snake Monk. Other creatures you control get +2. Other snake creatures you control get +2/+2. Then whenever a snake you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So 6 mana. We're not ramping super hard with this deck, but you know, once we get to the 6 mana slot and we have this card in our hand, it's just yeah, no, you just get it down. Really good card. You get Snake Lord, and then you get to draw a card for each snake that whenever it deals combat damage. So just really solid card for the deck. This is one of those that if you're basically building Hapatra, it's pretty much going to go in there no matter what kind of Hapatra build you're going for, just because it just has so much value out of the Lord bonus and then the card draw bonus. But we covered Hapatra, the -1 creatures, -1 removal, token package, and the pump package. I think that it is it for the deck tech. I have 3 gameplay videos for you, so head on over there and check them out if you want to. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.